Good afternoon, councillors. Afternoon, Mary, our independent person here as well. No press, but if you're viewing this from home, welcome, and thank you for the ADC staff sitting here. Today's Audit and Risk Committee is the 22nd of September. Are there any apologies? None. Extraordinary business? I don't have none. Declaration of interest? None. Then we go to the minutes from the 11th of the 8th, 21. If there's nothing to change, can I have a mover and a seconder? John. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second,
sorry.
thank you.
Look at my own name, so that was the problem. So for the mover and seconder, everyone in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Number 5, Wakakatoi Technical Audit Report. We've got Neil and Brian here, and good afternoon, gentlemen. I'll give you the floor for a start. You can explain or tell us what we're going to see or how we're going to go forward. So if you guys want to take this over and start, the questions will come later.
The report, as you see, is, I think, a reasonable summation of where we're at as the roading team. A lot of the things that they say we should improve on are things that we are actually working on at this particular point in time. Getting a forward work program ahead of us. We have that pretty much in line now with our resurfacing. We can give you a 3-year, if not longer, indication of what we're doing. We can do that in the rehabilitation stakes as well. And what we have been doing over the last 12 months or more is getting together a full fault listing of everything that's out there and using that as the basis for a program for our maintenance going forward. So that's where we're at. And as I say, I think the audit virtually sums up that pretty well.
Thank you. Neil, you want to say anything, or you're quiet? I've got a question just basically on page 6, and it basically tells us that the cost for us is 4,000 per case, roughly 4,000 per case, and it goes up to $11,000 per kilometre in other districts. Why is that? Are we not getting enough money? Are we not spending money? Or why is the difference that big?
Well, basically, if you look at the PMRT, which is the performance measures, if you like, that are done throughout the various local authorities and NZTA on the state highway throughout the country, our rating is very high compared to our peer group of councils. We would be, across all sort of measures, at least in the top 3, if not the top 1. Accordingly, our cost at 4,000 odd a K is considered adequate to maintain our roading network in the condition that they want it to be in, basically. And so others might have a windy, uphill, downdale, built on clay, could slip off a hillside, all that type of problems in their network, and therefore they may have things that they've got to do that are a lot more expensive than what ours would be.
Okay. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Lovett. Oh, sorry, that's Caroline.
Oh, big pardon, just yep. When I look at this, I don't understand when they talk about the bridge. I don't understand what they're saying. There's some recommendations with regards to around the bridge. It's not bridge repairs. Do you know where that is, Brian? I've just moved on from that now. And
Which page are you on?
it's early on. Network condition. I'll hang up and I'll find it and I'll put my light back on again.
Okay.
No, I think what they're talking about there is there's various things that, we have a 3-year report that's done by WSP Opus, or WSP these days, and that maintenance report comes in, and as a result of that report, it gives recommendations as to how we should be maintaining our bridge stock in the immediate short term, medium term and long term. It also says what ones we should possibly be looking at reinstating in the next 1 to 5, 10 years, and giving a rough idea of costs involved in those type of things. To date, because the work that they're saying has been relatively minor, I would suggest we're a little bit behind in doing some of that work.
Thank you, Brian. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm on page 6 and just talking about the number of annual deaths and serious injuries, and it says that in 2020 communities at risk register ranked us at 68 from 72 councils. Doesn't sound too good. What has it been like in the past?
It's the other way round.
Oh, okay.
If you were number 1, you would have the most deaths and serious injuries.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So is that on par with what we've been in the past?
Deaths and serious injuries is a rather awkward one because, as you know, in the last year, I think we've had somewhere in the vicinity of 4 deaths and 9 serious injuries in the last 1 to 2 years. Some of those won't be in this record because the record is for the previous 5 years, not for the years going forward, or the one that we're right in, should I say. And it comes off the CSA reports that we don't have any input into. It is input in by the police, etc. And that's where the information comes from.
Okay, so I suppose what I'm getting at, if I can ask, is are we doing enough in our rural intersections to...
Well, it would show that of the 72 districts out there, we rank 68th. In other words, we're not quite the best, but we're 68 away from the worst. So you can consider what you like from that.
Thank you, Brian. But every death is one death too many. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just commenting on the rural intersections as well, and in the last, we had the bad one at down here at Elgin, was it 4 or 5, and then another couple of deaths that went over off the bridge into the RDR. We've had a couple here in the last wee while, which is the RDR obviously wasn't an intersection, but rural intersections gets flagged up. We have lots of near misses, we have accidents at them. So what are we doing in our work program to address that?
We've got a traffic engineer who goes out and inspects every intersection, and he's doing that on a regular basis, especially if there's been an accident at a particular intersection. We're comparing those intersections to the standard through MOTSAM and through the TCD manuals that we have for the various delineation, rural intersections, whatever it happens to be. For the last 10 years, NZTA have been in the process of changing from MOTSAM to what they call a TCD manual. They're up to rural intersections as one that they're actually dealing with right at this particular point in time, or should I say intersections. We match what we see out there with what we put in ourselves, and if we don't think it's up to the standard guidelines that have shown, we would improve it. Otherwise, we'd give it a tick and carry on to the next one.
Some of these intersections where they've had these fatal accidents and the injuries are, you wouldn't call them at-risk intersections. There's high visibility, they're just straight through crossroads. people just don't stop and they go through and the ones we know about pay the ultimate price. I assume there's others out there who we don't know about. So I think we need to find out if it's a huge problem or not by measuring who goes through an intersection without stopping, without giving way, but not having an accident. Determine how big the problem is.
If you can tell me how we can do that quite within our budget, I'll be willing enough to do it.
I could tell you how. It won't be within your budget because you haven't budgeted for it, but I don't know why a budget would come into it when we're looking at people's lives and there's evidence that they are dying at our intersections.
I would suggest that there's 68 councils out there that are worse off than us. I know that recently we've had some really bad crashes, and I'm not discouraging, or I'm in sympathy with the people involved in those, but it's a behavioural thing, not a road thing.
Thank you, Brian. I just called to Neil.
Yeah, if I can just add, we do also receive feedback from people with regards to near misses. If there's conditions like sunlight strike, we do get feedback from people, and that's when our safety engineer would go and investigate. So we're not waiting for an accident to happen all the time. We do have a safety budget, and if there are steps that we can take to look at various intersections that have been highlighted to us, we can certainly look at doing some sort of measure or tracking. If it means putting across one of the cables to check if the speed going through the intersections is in fact slowing down or not, we could perhaps include that into our program in our current budget. Just means it shifts other things. So we certainly are open to exploring that. We do need feedback from the community and people who feel that some intersections are a concern or need to be looked at, and we'll certainly follow through with that.
Thank you, Neil. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, on page 6, they say about roadside drainage. I think it's the roads that run northeast, southwest, sort of across the district. I'm sure we've got a problem. The ones that run downhill, the water drains away, and quite often you see the gullies where the water is, that's where the potholes are, but I see they recommend to do something with it. The other comment I'd make, it says pavement integrity has been in decline since 1617. So what if above the national average? The national average shouldn't have anything to do with it. If our roads are in decline and we're only spending in the lower quintile, why are we not spending more money? If other districts can obviously get up to 11,000 subsidy per K, is that the way I read it? NZTA are taking us for suckers because I know it's difficult to get them up, but can't we point out that we're in the lower quintile as far as the subsidy goes, and our roads are in decline? 1 and 1 don't make 2 to me. It should be pointing out to them, if we are to maintain our roads, they've got to give us a bit more money.
Brian, you want to reply, or Neil?
I've replied in the sense that the PMR that they work off, all the factors that we work off are in the higher classification that shows our network is in a good condition. Okay, yes, it's in decline, but declining how much? Very minorly over the last 5 years. Not enough to warrant NZTA lifting their pencil and giving us more money. That's what it boils down to. Our network out there, level of service that we provide, is very high compared to other networks throughout the country, especially our peer group of networks. When we go for a budget, we have to supply evidence to match every little piece of money that we want from NZTA. If we cannot supply that evidence, then we will not get any extra funding. We can't supply evidence when we've already got a well-performing network.
So basically what we saw this morning, we went through, I asked you the question about, what we like to put in and what is getting done by the organisation. we just don't get it. They don't want to give us the money, so we don't have enough to fix it properly. Is that correct? Or
Well, you've just got to look at where the money's gone in the low cost, low risk area. Auckland and Wellington, who have the biggest populations and therefore the most chance of statistically of accidents, etc., get all the money for road improvements. We, right down the bottom end, or the rest of the country, should I say, other than those two, it was divvied up. You could get 50% of what you asked for.
okay, thank you. Neil, you want to say?
Yeah, just to respond to Councillor Wilson's comment, there's clearly a bucket with a fixed amount of money, and although our pavement is deteriorating, unfortunately, if other councils' networks are deteriorating more than ours, they will get more of that money from that fixed budget. So that's the truth. We all know all the councils' road networks are deteriorating, and there's just a fixed amount of money that has to be spread across New Zealand councils, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately. We provide all the evidence from our various data sources, and we have to present that to Waka Kotahi, and then they compare that with all the other councils.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I find the report interesting, but what I look at it, why are the authors of the report, who are supposedly doing an audit of NZTA's interest in our road network that they've funded, why are they now coming back and say, well, you could do better here, when they are also the funder for actually paying for that work? So the two parts of the organisation are clearly in conflict with each other, and therefore, so to me, this is just a guide. What it tells us is we're doing a pretty good job, but if we had more money, we could actually do a perfect job, and therefore you wouldn't have to worry about some of the issues that they've raised in here. Just coming back though, question, Brian, you were saying before about, you've made improvements, you've now got forward plans, you know exactly what you're doing in every area of roading. Have those come from your own initiative, or have they come from previous audit reports from NZTA?
No, we've been in a position where we've been trying to get ahead of the 8 ball for the last decade or more. We haven't had any tools until more recently. What I'm getting at here is modelling tools. DTIMS is one in particular. There's a new one that we're looking at currently which we think might give us better results, and that's known as Juno Viewer. We've also brought in people from outside, GeoSolve. We've had strength measurements done of our pavement throughout the district, trying to get a handle on how our network is deteriorating, what the rapidity of it is, how quickly is it deteriorating, where should we be spending the money, and where would we get the best value by spending those dollars. We've tested the DTIMS over a period of 6 years to date, and we're starting to get reasonable information from that from the point of view of our resurfacing program going forward, but not from the point of view of our rehabilitation program going. It's still not giving us the answers that we would suggest it should be giving us. So that's why we're looking at putting the Juno Viewer in place, because it seems to be giving better results on the state highways. And so we'd look to that and see if we can use that to give us a better result. On the other side, we've had, with the tablets now being available out in the field, and fibre and all the rest of it giving us far better contact, we don't have to bring things back into the office, write them up, and put them into our RAM database. So we can go out now, take a photo, and it's automatically into our RAM database. And it's that type of information that we can now use to determine our forward works program as far as where we go to fix potholes, for argument's sake, where we go to do each break, where there's drainage problems, all that type of thing. And we can now look at where the faults are. We can look at our hierarchy of roads out there and decide where we're going to get best value for dollars and put a program together going forward. And that now will form the evidence going forward as well to supply to NZTA to say, hey, historically our budget may have been this, but we're not getting proper value out of that. This is where we should be going, fixing these type of things, because they are real problems, not what we've been doing historically. So that's what we've been aiming for, and we've been doing that off our own bat now, as I say, for the better part of 10 years.
Thank you, Brian.
If I can just add, what we have done since the last audit, we've taken up some of those recommendations. We've also brought staff in-house where we previously used consultants, and we've invested in improving our technology and our asset recording. So we have improved our data and the use of the data, and we're more proactive now, which you'll see in the report. They have recognised that we have improved our asset data information. So following on, we did pick up on the previous recommendations and then put quite a bit of focus and investment into technology and staff to improve that.
Thank you, Neil. Cameron, please.
Carolyn?
Cameron?
I have two questions, if I may. The first one is on page 34, which is in the appendices, B, and I presume this is where they've gone around and looked at the roads, is that right? Yeah, it's just where the 579k and they've gone around our roading network. Do you have an opportunity to influence that? Because some roads around those areas are pretty bad, but they don't seem to have driven down those ones.
They had their own program of where they wanted to go.
Okay.
But we drove them and took them out there, and we were with them when they were out there.
Because I know that Surveyors Road is dreadful. It doesn't look like they went down Surveyors Road. But I could be wrong there, that's just one thing. And the next thing was on page 19, was the footpaths. I see that most of the feedback in this report, well, a lot of it is actually based around the paving and the footpaths area. Page 19, they're talking about what would seem a small thing, a tactile indicator paving. Are we putting all that on, is that obviously required for people that have disabilities and things? Are we putting that on all our new intersections?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
This special paving, does it have to go on all our new intersections, this tactile indicator paving?
Right, that's for mobility personnel.
Yeah.
So the yellow dots, if you're blind, you walking a stick and push it around, that'll tell you where your crossing point is.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes, well, the other part of it is that there's supposed to be a right angle one to that, so that if you're travelling in that line and the crossing's going that way, you know you're going to miss it if you walk down there, unless you're right on the crossing itself. So out from the crossing, there's supposed to be one at right angles to it.
I can see that on the image.
Yeah.
And they've also got an image there where we haven't got that particular part. We'll see it there,
but
that's
this is,
one. And
as you can see, this is still in the East Street area. In other words, the CBD. And it's an area that is still under construction.
Oh. No, I think that may be so, Brian. I think the picture is one that has been finished. It's on page 19.
My understanding is that the CBD hasn't been finished and won't be finished until November 22nd, and it is still a construction site.
They'll still come back and put that on.
It's not a thing they can put on, is it? They have to put it in.
Yes, they will.
It is, it's just the
Sure.
stick on.
But thank you. Thanks for your openness to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Mr. Mayor. Caroline, can you turn it off?
Oh, big.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm on page 17, the Stella, page 17, and it talks about examples of good network management observed during the audit. And then under the bullet point is realising opportunities and sharing innovation through the Aoraki roading collaboration. I didn't think you're in the collaboration anymore. You are? You're not?
Nope.
ARC, yes.
Yes, Mr.
We're
You are
still part
still
of the
right.
ARC, yes.
Right, that's fine. And then down a couple of bullet points below, commending for implementing safer speeds at high-risk locations, e.g. Fringes in schools. I thought we tried to do the schools, but NZTA kicked back on us.
NZTA, I think, kicked back because we didn't have the schools as part of our original consultation. The schools consulted back, submitted in, but we didn't have them as part of the original consultation. So they were saying that we hadn't gone down the true process, if you like, before putting in the speed limit signs.
Right, so we're fixing that. We're fixing that here.
Yes, we are, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then down a bit further, but it's still on page 17, opportunity exists to improve contractor performance monitoring. So what are we going to do about that? And which includes good record keeping of both contract management and operational meetings. I thought that would have been a given.
It is a
Recording
given,
all
and
meetings.
it is what happens,
It does happen.
yes.
Yeah. And there's an opportunity exists to improve contractor performance monitoring.
Well, there's always an opportunity to improve that type of thing regardless, so anybody can make that sort of statement at any time.
So we'll focus on that though. Yeah.
Thank you, Neil. Councillor Moffat.
I was just going to ask about the network deteriorating. I mean, it's going to keep going on, and we can't be the only council in this position. Shouldn't we, through the mayoral forum or something, be kind of advocating and putting pressure on the government to get more of the RAP money? Because if we sit here and take it year upon year, nothing's ever going to change, is it?
Now, as I was indicating to Mr. Falone, that the evidence that we'll produce going forward to back up the budget request is a lot more detail. It's not based on history, it's based on what we know the network needs. And as a result, hopefully, we will get better funding, and funding more in line with where we need it. Not to say that what we're doing currently, I would feel we've caught up somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 years, and given us another 1 to 2 years, I think we would be back up to where we were 10 years ago as far as our district level of service is concerned.
Thank you, Brian. I just bring Hamish into the
Thank you,
conversation.
Mr. Chairman. Notwithstanding, Brian's technical perspective on subsidy, it is true that across the country there is political concern about Waka Kotahi funding, and there's been many messages from the chairman of that board, from the CEO of that organisation, from the Minister of Transport, that there's simply insufficient funding. So the Mayoral Forum has written a letter to the Minister of Transport and to Waka Kotahi. We've had a meeting with the local representative and some of their other representatives to express the concern across Canterbury at the point you raise. And the concerns are all acknowledged at a political and a community level, but there is no money to make it any different. So there isn't another letter to send that will have a different result.
Okay. Thank you. And I was just going to make a comment. This morning I nearly got collected on the corner of Boundary Road and Fords Road. And I'm just wondering, you've already taken a giveaway sign away from there and put a full stop sign there. I'm just wondering whether we can ramp up some of the education aimed at the school parents, because there's a school down the road, whether we could aim some of the education around the stop signs and giveaways at school parents to ramp that up a little bit. Because, the car was on my side of the road and I had to jam on my brakes, so, yeah.
We can certainly bring that up with our school person and take it on board and take it into the schools in our areas where we go in now.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, just one thing I noticed when I went through the report. Signage at bridges and corners doesn't seem to be there. Is that getting stolen? Is it lack of maintenance? Don't we check enough? Or what is the main reason there?
Some of it's vegetation control at the bridges itself, so that the bridge end markers, that's the yellow and silver, or silver and gold markers at the end of each bridge, they get covered over. Sometimes they get damaged by vehicles hitting them or scratching them, that type of thing. It's an area that our contractors over the past have not really followed up properly, but it is an area that HEB will be monitored on, and we'll be looking to improve quite markedly going forward.
Thank you for that, Brian. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll go back to where it was. When we're discussing funding, I see the next 3 years, NZ, the government are earmarking 24.8 billion. If you scroll down into it, 4.8 billion is actually council money. So they put our money into their funding as if it was government money. I think that was a sleight of hands, and I think local government should point out to them that is a lie, because the government doesn't spend our money, we spend our money. I think it was a incorrect way of pointing out that the government was actually using our money to bolster their figure. I think we should have pointed that out to them. Also, and here it says about waratahs and things, I think we should be stricter on that. There's a farmer's fence on Coldstream Road that's put wooden posts well outside his line, and we've done nothing about it. We should have told him to take them out, because it is quite dangerous, and especially with roading machinery is quite wide and they just can't get off the road.
Murray.
Just a quick question on the implementation dates on page 5.
We just heard that.
What I was wondering was where we've got implementation dates, often the narrative sort of says when we're going to start things and they're ongoing. How do we actually measure performance in terms of completing? I know there's a budgetary issue there and all the rest of it, but how do we actually make sure that we're going to a program in terms of deadlines and getting stuff actually done?
The easiest way would be to check through our dispatches and look as to what we're dispatching on and whether those dispatches have been done.
And we do that?
And we do that on a regular basis.
Thank you, Murray. Any more questions? Any observations? Neil?
I'd like to move the recommendation that council receives the Wakakatahi NZTA technical audit report and staff report back in a certain time frame as to improvements that they're undertaking.
Okay, so you want to put that
monitoring.
in.
There's
Hamish? I just...
Oh, sorry, it wasn't in relation
okay.
to the... I'd like to have a word if I may, but just not, it wasn't in relation to that resolution.
Okay. You want to do the resolution first?
You want the resolution again?
Yeah.
The second part is that staff report back on the improvements that they're making to the network, something like that.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we'll report back on the audit. We're saying there's areas for improvement. I think what I'm hearing the Mayor ask for is how are we getting on with those areas of improvement that have been highlighted. Yeah.
And I'll second that.
We've got second. Any debate? If not, I'll put a motion. Everyone in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you, gentlemen. And do the best you can with the money you get from the Waka. Hamish.
Just to conclude that audit report, Mr. Chairman, and for councillors' information, I met with the audit team at the conclusion of their audit, and I was very gratified to hear their praise for our roading team, so that the staff group in our roading department were very well regarded by the audit team in terms of the information they had, their knowledge of our network, the issues they were grappling with, the manner in which they responded to the auditors, the openness to considering ideas and issues that were being raised. So I think from the point of view of councillors and the district, there should be comfort taken from the group that is working in this really critical area for our district, and they're working effectively and hard. And of course there is always room for improvement. I've never seen an audit yet that doesn't suggest you can't do better, and of course we take that very seriously. But I think there should be some comfort from the conversation that I was party to, that expressed some strong support for our employed rating team. Thank you.
So basically, we don't get enough money from national government.
Oh, well, I think
You know,
there's potentially always money issues with stuff. I think you've also got to recognise that there's 2,500 kilometres of roading, and keeping it in tip-top order is actually a complex and technical job, and money is always a factor, but there's always issues to solve and deal with, and some of that is no doubt money. We have to do all we can to make sure the money goes to where it's most needed, and we make it go further than anyone else, so that we can keep the network well maintained. But my real point was that the group that's charged with doing that inside the council building came through that audit very, very positively.
Yeah. Like I said before, the main lack is the lack of money to fix it. Thank you, gentlemen. Good seeing you here. And thank you. Well, this is the end of open meeting. Is there a mover and a second that we go in public excluded? We've got the mayor and we've got Caroline. Everyone in favor, please say aye.